Hey everybody, I have some thoughts on Elantris. I finished reading it not too long ago, and it's really been stewing in my mind quite a few things. So I'm going to talk about it. Starting with the characters, this is a triple narrative book. So you have Prince Rauden, Princess Serena, I think it's Ina, Hrathen, a foreign-born Derethi Gyorn, who is the really one of the highlights of the book for me. So the overall narrative is the very clever interweaving of these three main perspective characters. A lot of different narratives have different strong points, right? So if you look at something like, for example, Lord of the Rings is about the characters, yes, but it's also as much about getting to a place and accomplishing something as it is the characters themselves. Then there's some other stories like Elantris and quite a few others that are about the characters and the drama that is created as these characters interact or fail to interact. The Kingmaker, Kingbreaker books are also another very good example of this. There's kind of a world that exists, and there are some characters that are interacting with each other that makes conflict happen. I love these kind of stories. The pacing can be a little bit slower, but I think that with the character arcs have a lot of really good narrative payoff. So I think this is a really good book. I highly recommend. But anyway, back to the characters. The overall plot, you have a prince who is cursed, sent away basically to the Dark Souls undead asylum to live out the remainder of his tragic existence as a horrible undead wretch. The princess that was supposed to marry him arrives, only to be told that he's dead. Don't worry about it. He's definitely gone forever, for real. This narrative by itself can be interesting, but it's complicated by the introduction of essentially a doomsday prophet who is also a cardinal from a very hostile foreign kind of theocracy. I think this single plot line of Hrathen really is what made Elantris for me. The idea of a doomsday priest who is not just a bad guy. There's a lot of tropes that you'll find in popular media have the dastardly church, or where the religion is actually evil, or everybody who's in it, all the priests are wicked for some reason or the other. And I think this was very, for me personally, it was very refreshing to find a priest who was, if not good, I wouldn't call Hrathen a good guy, right? He's definitely the antagonist in the story, if not outright villainous. He is, at the very least, somebody who believes what he says. Hrathen was sent by the Wyrm, the great leader, the caliph of his country, to preserve the people in the city, to convert them, all of them, forcefully, if necessary, to their religion, to Shu-Dereth. And the city itself is Erelon. So it has the vibe of a city-state. I think it's actually supposed to be a small country, but to me, it's just one city that really matters, the capital. And he believes what he says, that he's there to save them. And to this end, what lengths are you willing to go to save the lives and souls of an entire population of heathens? Right. This is a very interesting sort of question, and I think it really informs a lot about a character. So I really like Hrathen here. Both Rauden, the Prince Rauden, and Princess Serena are a little bit more similar to what you'd find in other media. I mean, Serena, she's like a Princess Leia type, right? She's a liberated, independent woman. She's takes on a more traditional masculine leadership type role. She doesn't shy away from this. That's all well and good. But Hrathen, I think, plays a very interesting contrast to what we typically find of the evil church. It's a very interesting take on it. And then, of course, there's Uncle Kin, who is revealed later to be the dread pirate Crushed Throat. Very nice all around. I'm a big fan of all of these characters. But I think every story is really made by its bad guys. I am a big fan of villains in pretty much any media. If the hero is cool, but the villain is lackluster, you gotta have a cool villain, right? James Bond can be great, but if there's no golden eye, if there's nobody to tie him to a chair and cut him with a laser, what is the hero even going to do, right? For every good hero, you need just as good of a villain. And we do get this. We get Hrathen, the Gjorn who's there playing politics and slowly converting the hearts of the people. But we also get an actual wicked villain, Dilaf. Dilaf? I'm going to go with Dilaf. And it was a very nice reveal where it starts out that Hrathen is taking over the local church, kicked out whoever was there previously and said, all right, I'm in charge now, everybody. And there's one Arteth, they're called, a parish priest, who was there named Dilaf. Now, Dilaf, very loyal, seems to be a little bit insane. He's just a little too zealous. And what he really wants to do, he has one major goal in mind. He wants to convert the people, but most importantly, he wants to kill those undead wretches for some reason. Going back to this, in the city next to Erelon, there is another city that was originally the capital, just called Elantris, the titular Elantris. The residents of Elantris were once these beautiful angels. They could do magic. They had all sorts of things. They could materialize matter and command stones to become bread. But then something happened, and now they're all undead, basically abominations. They don't die. They're just in constant pain. It's terrible. Their magic is gone. They have nothing. Most of them just lay in their own filth and scream all day. And for some reason, Dilaf really, really hates them. It's not clear why, and even his final motivation is very personal, but it's good that we have somebody who is balancing Hrathen. We do have the good side and the bad side, good and bad in relative terms, of the church, right? Somebody who actually believes I'm here to save the people, and somebody who really understands that these people are already damned and we're just here to kill them. That's all. We're just here to kill people. So I really like having the interplay between Hrathen and Dilaf. I think that really made the narrative for me. Going on from the bad guys to talk about the magic, and this goes back a little bit more to Elantris and the Elantrians, as they're called. These, as stated previously, they're in their fallen state. They're kind of these wretched, gray, sort of undead creatures. But as they are later on restored and what they were previously, they are these beings of innate magic. They are filled with this power called the Door, this pure, primal, raw, magical power that comes from somewhere else. It's unclear, right? And they are able, through the creation of glyphs that they draw in the air, very classic fantasy, to influence reality, to create spells. And it's a kind of complicated magical mathematics that Prince Rauden ends up learning. I like both the concreteness and abstractness of the magic system. So you see this often with Sanderson, that he creates very firm, very strict magical systems that are almost more scientific than magical. Think Stormlight Archives, right? This is the Stormlight itself obeys very strict rules. But once you start looking at, in Elantris, you look at Door and how that works, or at least the magical glyphs that the Elantrians use, it feels very concrete because you have to draw the glyph perfect. It has to be done with exactness or else the entire spell will fail. But at the same time, it has some mystical connection to the land itself. So the reason why, the thing that actually caused the fall of the Elantrians is not some kind of debauchery, it's not a curse from God, it's not because there was somebody who reached too far, and it wasn't a story of hubris necessarily. It was an earthquake. There was an earthquake that caused a ridge to open a wide ridge to open in the city of Elantris itself, or in the territory. And this ridge changed what the face of the earth in this area looks like, and all of their magic broke because of that. All of their magic broke because all of the spell formulae that they have to use are based on drawing first a representation of the land. So if the land changes, all their magic stops working. And once they fix this, Rowden fixes it by literally drawing a line in the city. All of the magic turns back on and everything is okay. All their magic works again. It's a very interesting way to match a hard magic system with the connection to the land and to the earth, and by proxy to the people. So I think that was very interesting. And man, as a first book, because I think this was Brandon Sanderson's first ever published book, this was really impressive. I think it was also very bold for him to start with a character drama, especially comparing it to something like Mistborn Book 1, The Last Empire, which is way more like a standard fantasy novel, right? Street urchin rises up, becomes the apprentice of a wizard, and ends up killing the evil king, right? That's more the hero's journey fantasy type than we see with Elantris. So I think it's very bold to see this as a first published work. All in all, really nice. There was a lot of world-building elements that I loved. I like the idea of all the different cultures, that there is different ways of using the door. It's hinted at that in Elantris it's like this, but other places it's done other ways. The interplay between nobility and some light politics is always very interesting. But yeah, all in all, these are my thoughts.